First up is Tiger Man by Nick Harkaway, who's the author of No Mon and a recent Smiley book in John le Carré style. He's John le Carré's son, obviously. And this was a find in a charity shop. I can't remember which one now. Probably in Woodley. I don't really know. I think it's one of his earlier novels. 2015. And at the time, he just had The Gone Away World and Angel Maker to his name. So I don't know how science fiction-y this is. We'll see. So Tiger Man. And next, in the way of my gradual accumulation of the Black Spine science fiction masterworks, is The Penultimate Truth by Philip K. Dick, of course. And this is number 58, one of the later books in the Before They Went All Yellow. So, pretty good. So I don't know exactly how many of these I've got now. 22 or 3-ish, something like that. And I think they're in the high 60s in total, maybe 70. So these first few are charity shop finds. And then the next one I found is a book I almost didn't get. So in the Oxfam near where I work in Richmond, there was a shelf of books which I gradually realised were all Venice themed. So some of them were crime novels, some of them were historical fiction. And then there was this one, which I thought, judging by the spine, might be, because it was Tor, it might be science fiction. So I had a closer look. So it's Interface Mask by someone called Sharianne Lewitt, which I think is a pen name. Certainly she's got work under a different pseudonym. Set in a sort of future version of Venice, there's a guild specialising in the making and breaking of data systems, and then a senior apprentice in said guild. And so it seems a little bit sort of data-y, cyberpunk-y maybe, but set in Venice. It's an interesting setting. So I've never heard of it, don't know anything about it apart from what I've just read to you on the blurb. So we'll see how that is one of these days. So that was it, just 3 books in this what's quite considerable haul were from charity shops this time around. If you hadn't already realised, this is the book haul for November 2025. I'm recording this on Thursday the 6th of November. And if you're new around here, my name's John and I focus on collecting, reading and waffling on about science fiction books, old and new. So first 3 were charity shops. These next handful here, it's a bit of a bumper month for me. It's most unusual. Months go by, I don't get anything off my wish list, but in this month I've got 5. So first up is a collaboration between Alia Wheatley and Oliver Langmead, and this one was sent to me by Marcus, who I think, if it's Marcus, I think it is, he's a regular viewer and commenter, and he says in the note that came with it, I hope you enjoy this and thanks for the great YouTube channel, from Marcus Philpott. The drill with these is, as always, I'm extremely grateful. It's very kind of anyone to send me a book, as we'll see in a minute, more than one book, which is really awesome. And it always puts a massive smile on my face. So truly, Marcus, I'm very grateful. Thank you very much. One might argue slightly self-servingly. Martin Lejeune sent me this, again, a frequent viewer and commenter on my channel. So he sent me the McMurdo Rift, which I happen to know Martin is half of the writing duo that put this together. And I think I'm right in saying this is the first of what might be a trilogy, I think. And I can't recall now whether the rest of them are in the can already or if they're coming. I don't recall. Martin will probably let us know in the comments. But yeah, so he's the Lejeune half, and Bradley's another chap, a friend of his, I think. So it's space opera as far as I can tell. What does it say here? One ex-wife, a missing husband, and a mysterious alien race. So Martin, eagle-eyed, spotted this on my Amazon wish list. And sent it to me himself. It was very kind of him, thank you. And I, as regular viewers will know, I'm partial to a bit of space opera, so I will get to it at some point. Thank you again. Thank you very much. Well, 1 book is marvellous, but 3 is, even better. These next 3 books are all from Alan, who I assume anyway is a regular viewer. He sent me 3 books, all of which obviously were on my wish list. The first of these is a collection of short stories by Will Wiles, and it's in the Salt Press Modern Stories series. So this is the Anechoic Chamber and Other Stories, and I've put this on my wish list because, if I'm honest, I really like the cover. So I think it's only lightly science fiction. It might even be more horror, really. So we're in the sort of weird and uncanny department, I think. In this new collection of uncanny short stories, award-winning author Will Wiles finds sinister creatures and subtle nightmares in mundane modern environments. So it's not a especially thick book, so I don't know how many stories are in now. I would have thought of the order of 7 or 8. Let's see, 9 it seems. So I should enjoy. I'm having a bit of a renaissance with short stories in recent months, having kind of been a bit of a stick in the mud and not really got on with them. Something's clicked in my brain, and I'm ploughing through quite a few short stories these days. So that I shall get to at some stage. So again, Angus, thank you very Alan, thank you very much. And he also sent me Animals by Jeff Ryman. It's a relatively recent book from Newcom Press. I did covet the hardback limited edition, but I wasn't sure. It's really a horror book rather than science fiction. I didn't really want to spend £30+ on the limited edition. So I was very content to get the paperback in this case. So he's the author of The Child Garden, and if you just store that up here, you'll see that in a while. So this tells the chilling tale of a family caught at the heart of a terrifying and transformative epidemic in an astonishing fusion of beautiful writing and pure horror at its finest. So I now have a handful, like 3 or 4 maybe, books by Jeff Ryman, and I've not read a thing by him. So I need to do a bit of exploring in his in the work of his that I've got. He's been around for a while, so he's probably got way more in his back catalogue than I have at the moment. But still, Alan, once again, thank you very much. And then finally, and if I'm honest, the one that I'm excited about all of them, but I'm most excited about is this one, which was recommended to me actually last year when I spoke to Sue Burke, who's the author, amongst other things, of Semiosis, a book that I enjoyed a few years back. I asked her for any recommendations, thinking science fiction, and she recommended this anthology, which is part science fiction and part science essay. In each case, there's a story by, I think, science fiction by a recognisable science fiction author. It's got some by Gregory Benford, Julie Chinada, Mary Robinette Cowell, Premi Mohammed, Peter Watts. Anyway, some recognisable names. And then after each one, there's an essay on the same topic, sort of exploring the feasibility or not, or that's what I understand anyway. And there's a foreword by Stephen Baxter. So that is called Life Beyond Us. And like I say, it's an anthology of short stories with a biological science fiction theme, I believe, and then an essay by an actual scientist after each one. So it'd be interesting kind of mix of the two. And she thought that was excellent and recommended it to me/us. So I'm really pleased to have a copy of that now. So Alan, that's above and beyond the Call of Duty. I mean, it's always fantastic to receive any book, but to receive 3 is really lovely. Thank you very much once again. At the risk of sounding like a scratch record, I really do appreciate it. So that's charity shops and gifts from viewers, which, as I say, is it's a rare month when I have that many, But in case any of you are curious, what they've done is go to my Amazon wish list, the link for which is in the description to this and any other video that I've put out. And from there, you can pluck a book off that wish list. Amazon will handle all of the address details in the background. And so there's no fuss, no mess. You just need to cough up some of your hard-earned money and the book will wing its way to me. If you're at all curious about how they've done that. My wife and I were away, as I'm recording this, last weekend, so at the end of October, early November, and we were staying in Shrewsbury, which is a town / city in Shropshire, a little bit northwest, I think, of Birmingham. So not about 3 hours from where we live. So not a huge trek or anything. And we had the weekend away. We did quite a lot of wandering around the historic sites of Shrewsbury, of which there are many. But it also turns out there's quite a lot of bookshops. And I managed to hit up a few as we were wandering around. So let's see if I can remember which shop these are from. So these are, I think, from Second Chapter Books, which is on the sort of basement level of, I think it's the Parade arcade or Parade shops, and it's in the former Royal Shrewsbury or Royal Salop Infirmary, which has not been a hospital for decades now. But there's a little arcade of shops in there, and in amongst them is a bookshop. And I only got a few in there, but they were interesting, I thought. So it's one of the Vorkosigan Saga books in the Bain hardback. It is called Diplomatic Immunity, which it turns out I already have a paperback of, but I'll ditch that and replace it with a hardback. Why not? I've only read one of the Vorkosigan Saga so far, and it's really a prequel. As the sort of chronologically the first one, Shards of Honor, and I thought it was pretty good, but I wasn't bowled over by. But I gather that but once Miles appears on the scene, I think it's with Warrior's Apprentice, then things improve dramatically, and it's a bit of a riot apparently. And then Ian Watson's an author who I understand is a little bit challenging, a little bit chewy. And I've recently acquired a really nice short story collection. I have a few of his novels. And I spotted this and thought I'll get this, why not? It's the first of 2. So Lucky's Harvest, science fiction. He does do a bit of fantasy as well. So the beginning of an epic 2-volume story by one of Britain's finest SF writers. And this cost me the princely sum of £4. It's a UK first edition. And then also there, I spotted this one, caught my eye because of the Jim Burns artwork. So this is Paradox by John Meaney. Now, somebody, I think it might have been in the last book haul or a different video, I really don't remember, in a comment said, I never hear anyone talking about John Meaney. We don't hear or see anything of him in California. I think that's where the person was from. And I, at the time, I said, I've never heard of him. So, Can't help you there. But having sort of been vaguely made aware of his name, I spotted this and thought, well, the cover's awesome. If nothing else, Jim Byrne's cover, as I say, and it's kind of wraparound art. It's really rather pretty. And this is the first of a trilogy. And you might or might not be seeing the other two books later. And this one, I was doubly tempted because it's signed and dated. So it's contemporaneous with its release in the year 2000, so 25 years ago. And it's in pretty much perfect condition. So that cost me a tenner. Which, for a signed first edition, admittedly from an author that sort of, I think, disappeared without trace, or was certainly under my radar. If you compare other books released in the year 2000, Perdido Street Station or, Revelation Space or whatever, then this one is, to me anyway, relatively unknown. But I'm intrigued to know. So this is like a space opera type thing, I think. And on the front here it says, John Meaney has rewired SF. Everything is different now. And I think he had... a book out before this, a year or two before in the late 90s called To Hold Infinity, which, as I understand it, was only issued in the UK anyway, in a paperback. I happen to know that the books 2 and 3 also have Jim Byrne's art on the covers. And so, if for nothing else than to get the pictures, I thought it'd be good to invest in that. So I can read it and see how I get on, and if I don't like it, I can sell it. And so those were the 3 that I got in, I think it's second chapter. And then in a different, in the main marketplace, which is an indoor market on 2 stories, upstairs there's a market stall come shop sort of called Raven Books, and they do a bunch of different things, including a lot of non-fiction, but I had a small science fiction section that I had a route through, and I got 2 things there. I got The Warlord of the Air, which I think I'm right in saying is the first of the Oswald Bastable books. I'm not sure how many of those there are. There's definitely one more, The Land of Leviathan, but I'm not sure if they go on beyond that. I've got a bunch of his books, by no means an aficionado, and I've only read one, which is the first of the Elric books, and I don't think I even got that. I listened to an audiobook, so I've only dipped my toes into the Michael Moorcock Lake, so one of these days I need to have a dive in and read a few more. So I am intrigued by this. It's sort of a steampunky thing, I think. Yes, apparently Michael Moorcock has pieced together the truly amazing saga of Oswald Bastable, temporal excursionist extraordinary. Captain Bastable finds himself in a future world that bears little relation to his Earth or his time. The year is 1973, and the airship rules supreme. So it's like a time-travel-y alternate history type thing, I think. Warlord of the Air. And then this isn't a terribly neat copy. It's a bit spine. There's a bit of spine. It's the spine's cracked and it's also pretty creased, as you might expect. But this is Barrington Bayley, The Garments of Khan or Cain, which I've heard good things about. It's got a pretty cool cover on it, which I'm almost willing to bet is utterly unrelated to the contents, but never let that get in the way of a good spaceship. And Cain or Khan, clothes weren't just for wearing, they were a whole philosophy of life, etc., etc. So I think it's a sort of unusual take. And then I went to yet another bookshop in Shrewsbury, which was called Welshbridge Books, I think, which was a real higgledy-piggledy mess of a shop. It had books everywhere, and on 3 or 4 floors. It's like an old converted house, and it had, just books on every surface. And it had quite, not huge, but, a very worthwhile science fiction section with 2 or 3 kind of bookcases. And in there I got, 7 or 8 books. So an upgrade of my... So I already have a copy of this, but it's an ex-library copy and it's in the right state, of Naomi Mitchison's Memoirs of a Space Woman, which is in the Women's Press science fiction, and this one is a much nicer copy. It's not perfect. It's got a bit of creasing on the spine, but it's otherwise in much better shape than the one that I had. And this seems to be, just judging by the prices on eBay, something that's a little bit more difficult to get hold of than some of the others. I don't know why. And maybe it's just that Naomi Mitchison's got a bit more name recognition. I don't know. But I'm going to see if anyone's fool enough to buy the slightly ropey copy. I certainly was, so maybe someone else will too. But that's so not really an addition, more of an upgrade. Then we've got a book by Michael Bishop that's on the David Pringle 100 Best Novels list. So it's No Enemy But Time. So I've got, again, several of Michael Bishop's books now, none of which I've read. So Michael Bishop's another author I need to really tuck into at some point and get more familiar with. This is No Enemy But Time, and it's, I imagine, a time travel tale. Yes, apparently so. And there seem to be dinosaurs, or at least prehistoric shenanigans. So that's all cool. And then I found Jack Vance. I've got a bunch of... repeating myself again. So Jack Vance, I've only read 1 or 2 of his books, and I've got a bunch on my shelf, so I'm just adding to them gratuitously. I've got another Alastor book. So Alastor is like a galactic cluster or something like that, and each of the planets is numbered. So Alastor 1716 is the planet Whist, and this is set there. And I don't know how many there are in this. It could be a whole galaxy of them for all I know, but there's certainly 2 because I've got another one, which I was actually meant to read in October, but I ran out of time, so it went back on the shelves to live to fight another day. So it can be joined by this one now. I'm sort of hoping at some stage I'll bump into a copy of The Dying Earth, but it seems to be one that people don't give away or sell very often, so I'm just going to wait patiently for that one to rock up. I've got a couple of the other Nebula stories anthologies, and so I thought I didn't have 7, and now I do. Edited by Lloyd Bujold Jr. Again, another cool spaceship on the cover. This has stories in it by likes of Paul Anderson, Kate Wilhelm, Robert Silverberg, George Zabrowski, Joanna Russ, Damon Knight, Theodore Sturgeon even. So these were all nominated for the Nebula by members of the Science Fiction Writers of America gang. So not your regular punters like the Hugo. These are people that actually know what they're talking about. Writers, if that makes sense. And then I was pleased to find yet another science fiction masterworks with the black spine of Timescape. It's a book that I already have. I have it in the UK first edition paperback, I think. But with the black masterworks, I'm allowing myself to have more than one copy of a book. This is in almost, I wouldn't say mint, but almost, pretty good condition, except that it's got a crease up the spine, which isn't very visible because the spine's black. So it's not badly creased. But not mint in the way that some of the others that I've got are, but it'll do. A really good book about sending messages back in time to try to achieve, to effect a change which will have ripple effects in the future and save humanity from doom. A short story collection of Leigh Brackett's works. It's The Halfling and Other Stories. This is a US edition, I think. Ace. Read 1 or 2 of Leigh Brackett's books and enjoyed them immensely, so she's someone, again, I need to read more of. I found, I am the nerd about getting it because I do already have a copy, but the copy that I've got is a really ropey paperback, and it's I bought it for like £1 in a charity shop or something, so it's fine. But it's a space opera by Brian Aldiss. So this is an anthology that he's selected, and there's I happen to know that there's a preface, a prologue, an introduction. That's the word I'm looking for, by Brian Aldiss, which talks about his love for Golden Age and before space opera. I think these are mostly from the 40s and 50s, with one a little bit later. So I don't know how many stories there are in here. Yeah, maybe 15 in total. So that's the first edition in the Weidenfeld and Nicholson. There you go, it's a mouthful. So my paperback can go. I'll just give that to charity. I think it's from whence it came. And then in the same place in Welshbridge Books, I found a really rucker, The Hollow Earth, and a hardback from Morrow, from I think it's the 1980s. Let's see. So this is a US edition, and it's from 1990. Sort of post-cyberpunk, quite challenging read apparently. So that was everything that I bought in Shrewsbury. But on the way back home, I managed to persuade my wife that it would be okay for us to take a little bit of a detour, half an hour out of our way, to go to Astley Book Farm, which is a place I've wanted to visit for ages, since seeing it first, I think, on Moyd's channel, Media Death Cult, probably a couple of years ago. It's just a bit too far to make a day trip just to do that, but on the way back it was fine. So this is another kind of, it's a very long building, it seems to go on forever, and they've got in fact, I'll put a little bit of video in here. I think I took some quite an extensive science fiction and fantasy section, and you could have a rummage in there for quite some time. We were a little bit on the clock, so we needed to get home. And actually, just being a little bit fussy about condition, I only came away with 5 books, which I thought was quite restrained. So we've got a book, which is book 3 of Astropolis by Sean Williams, and I've got book 1. So there's the reason I bought this, because this is book 3. I'm missing book 2 now, so that will turn up at some point, I'm sure. Sean Williams has sort of come to my attention recently because I acquired a short story collection of his, published relatively recently. It came in one of my lucky dip boxes earlier in the year, and I twigged from that he was the author of these books. So that's what I read of that short story collection. So I'm intrigued to read these. I think it's kind of space opera type thing. Yeah. Before he can save the galaxy from ruin, he must find the strength to carry on and reclaim his ultimate purpose. So there's that. And then there's Jeff Ryman, he of the Alan's very generous donation of 3 books to my library. So Animals was the one that he gave me. And The Child Garden is another. According to the Evening Standard, if you read one SF novel or come to that one novel, it should be this one. We got a Robert Silverberg omnibus in Sidgwick and Jackson. There's a set of these, which is a bit distressing because I might feel obliged to collect them. I don't know if they're probably quite minor Silverbergs, to be honest. But so there's 3 novels or novellas in there, and they are Master of Life and Death, Invaders from Earth, and The Time Hoppers. From 57, 58 and 67 respectively. So not exactly in his purple patch from the late 60s to the mid 70s or so. But you know, Robert Silverberg, it's in really nice condition actually. If it actually, the text block, it looks brand new. Quite often these are yellowed with age, but this is very bright white and you know, pretty good nick. It's very thin paper, that's the only thing I'll say. I suppose because I've jammed 3 books into one here. But anytime I see a Silverberg in a hardback in good condition, I'm going to get it. So why not? And then another hardback is Orbitsville Judgment, which I think is the 3rd book in the Orbitsville trilogy, which I gather the books 2 and 3 aren't all that great, but it's Bob Shaw. It's a Gollancz. I don't know when this is from exactly. Let's see, 1990. The Orbitsville Departure is the 2nd one. Rather austere, but not quite as austere as they used to be. There's a little bit of pizzazz in the cover. Bob Shaw, I've enjoyed the few of his that I've read. And I bought this. It's a short story collection by David Brin. Fortunately, I didn't really notice this until afterwards that the spine is a little bit faded, which is a shame, but still. You know, I've read a few David Brin books, but not any of his short stories. Right, I guess we could call the rest of this haul collection fillers. So where I'm just filling gaps. And among them is this one by Jodie Scott. What's it called? Passing for Human, which, as you can see, is in the same Women's Press science fiction livery as Memoirs of a Space Woman that we looked at earlier. And I've got, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 20 of these in total now, and there are over 30 of them in total that I've been able to detect. So I'm gradually accumulating them, and you know, one of these days I'm actually going to have to read some of them. But I mainly like the livery. I think it's quite smart. So having acquired John Meany's Paradox with the beautiful Jim Burns artwork on the cover, I am, in an idle moment, I sort out books 2 and 3. So book 2 is Context. Yet again, nice wraparound art from Jim Burns there. So I think this would have been in the early 2000s, 2002, yes. And then you've got Resolution, which just arrived today, actually. Again, with the Jim Burns cover. And that is, I think, from 2005. And actually, it's this is in as new condition. It's still got the Anton press release and sort of reading notes and review slip in the front. So it's in absolutely mint condition. And that was from 2005. Yeah, 2005. So those will make a nice addition to my shelves, and hopefully I'll also enjoy reading them at some point, being, I suppose, the ultimate aim. And then this was another recent acquisition. I bought this directly. I was feeling a bit flush. Regular viewers will know I was lucky to pick up a 1960s second edition of Lord of the Rings in a charity shop. I paid like £4 each for each of the 3 books, about £12 in total. And I bought them with the intention of selling them on. I was able to sell them for, let's just say, quite a lot more than I bought them for. And I've been busy kind of spending all of that money on yet more books. So amongst the ones that I decided to splash out on, having really enjoyed a couple of Justina Robson's books recently, including a different short story collection, Heliotrope, which was my book of the month for September, it must have been. So this is a relatively recent one, as Our Savage Heart, it's called. And these stories are from 2010s and early 2020, so relatively recent stories. It's a signed limited edition, as they often are with New Con if it's a hardback. So this is number 7 of 60, so quite a limited edition. There's no introduction. Often there's an introduction by a different author. There isn't in this case. So she's an author that I've come to really appreciate, and I have a few more of her novels from her backlist, which I'll get to at some stage, which I'm sure I'll enjoy too. I have been collecting the Telemas Quartet hardbacks from PS Publishing, and I was missing 2 of the Telemas Quartet. I've got the coda in the first 2 books. So this is the 4th book, actually, Exalted on Bellatrix 1. The fantastic, I think it's Jim Burns art on the cover. No, beg your pardon, Tomislav Tikulin And he does quite a lot of their art. And so this is book 4 of 4, 5 if you include the coda. And I also bought book 3, which I forget the name of exactly. It arrived damaged. It had been crushed basically, and the rear board was completely squashed in, and all the pages were bent as a result. So I'm sending that back for a refund as soon as I can organise or figure out how to get a return label for it. So I'm still missing one, unfortunately. But there we go. That's book 4. So one of those to get. Charles Stross, I've been busy collecting the novels of his that I'm missing. There's a couple in this haul. The first of them is Dark State, which is the second of the Empire Games trilogy, which is a follow-on to his Merchant Princes books, which I really enjoyed. I had them previously in hardback and in paperback, but I wanted to get them in hardback. So these, I don't think they were issued in the UK in hardback. So this is from the US. Yeah, it's priced in dollars, and this dates back to 2018, I think. I have got the third book, Invisible Sun, on its way. That's coming from the US, I think, and it hasn't arrived yet. Having got Lucky's Harvest earlier on, and realising that it was a part of a twofer, I sought out the second book, which is The Fallen Moon, which I only paid a few pounds for, plus a bit of postage, so it wasn't a huge outlay. And this one is from 1994. I'm just looking. I was distracted there by the list of characters, of which there are hundreds. It's like a Peter Hamilton book. So I don't know if I'm going to get on with Ian Watson's writing or not, but he's certainly been around for a long time. He's got a long and successful career, and he's still writing. So I should be very intrigued to see how I get on with those. So it's those two. What else we got here? Oh yeah, talking of Eric Brown again. So this is the final book in the Kon-Tiki quartet that I was missing. It's Iterations. I think it's actually it is part 4 of that quartet. And again, there's a coda for this too, which is a kind of add-on. It's really a short story. So it's a lot to not very many pages to put in a hardback cover, but anyway, that makes up the full set, the quartet plus the coda. Cover art by Ben Baldwin in this case, and as is often the case with these PS hardcover editions, that it's also printed on the laminated boards. And very pretty they are too. So I'm not really seeking out the signed editions, but if I can find them for reasonable money, then why not? So this one's signed and it's limited, I think. 100 copies, but this is not a numbered copy, so it's a file copy or a publisher's copy. So it's not part of the numbered run, but it is signed. So we'll take it. So that's the last book of the Kon-Tiki quartet. So that's complete. We're back to Charles Stross again. In this case, it's a short story collection called Toast, which is in a paperback. I don't think it was issued in a hardback in the UK. And this is issued by Cosmos Books, which is an imprint of Wildside Press. And I don't know. Yeah, this is a US edition. Of course, Wildside Press being a US edition. And I did have a look before I bought it to see how much of an overlap there was with Wireless, which is another short story collection of his. And there is 1 or 2 stories are in both, but generally speaking, they're quite separate. So that's cool. Getting close to completing my collection of Charles Stross's science fiction output. And I'm excluding the Laundry Files books from that, on a slightly arbitrary basis that those aren't really science fiction, more fantasy. Then we've got Crucible by Nancy Kress, which is the sequel to Crossfire, a book that I acquired a month or 2 back. I do already have perfectly good paperback copies, which I'll now sell, but I felt strangely compelled, I can't imagine why, to get the hardback editions. I think I'm right in saying that there wasn't a UK edition of these books. So there's a hardback US edition, and the other paperbacks I've got are also US editions. Don't know why you would have thought that Nancy Kress was someone with a certain amount of pull, but no. About a year ago, on my first trip to see Dorset Bob in his Aladdin's Cave of Books, I picked up A Memory Called Empire by Arcady Martin, and in a really lovely hardback. And I wanted to get the matching book in the duology, in the diptych, A Desolation Called Peace. But it's been a struggle to find the US hardback edition. But I managed to find it, so that's cool. Those books have their haters, but I really like them. Then we've got The Boar Maker by Linda Nagata. I've got this is in the Nanotech series, which includes Deception Well and Vast, and I think this is the first book in that series. So it's mainly really nice, but it is very spine faded, which the seller was naughty and didn't show. They only showed the front, so more for me for not asking for more photos. Really, it wasn't hugely expensive, but It's a little bit disappointing that it's not in as good a condition as I thought, but it did come all the way across the Atlantic, and I can't be bothered to get into sending it back. And then the latest addition to my broken binding collection is The Children of God by Mary Doria Russell, the sequel, of course, to The Sparrow, which I got a couple of months ago. This is part of my bi-monthly subscription, and the next one's due in December, I think. So it's the usual broken binding thing with the sprayed edges, the spreadges, I heard somebody refer to them as, and then printed on the artwork on the end flaps. It's printed sort of gilt on the cover, on the boards rather, and I think I'm right in saying it's signed. Yeah, she put a little bit more effort into her signature in this one. In the first one, in the Sparrow, it's just her initials, and it looks a bit scrawled. But anyway, so I read both of those relatively recently and really enjoyed them. And then this isn't science fiction at all, but since it's on my shelf, I'll show it to you. A couple of weeks back, I went to see an exhibition at the Bodleian Library in Oxford, which isn't far from where we live. And they have, amongst other things, an exhibition of quite actually a small amount, but still quite a lot, of a vast collection of papers that John le Carré left to them in his will. There are hundreds of boxes of archive material, research, notes, draft manuscripts, you name it. And they had a really lovely exhibition in the library there, where I lost myself for an hour, just background information on how he did his research for some of his books, all the way from the Cold War through to some of his more recent, more political thrillers. And there's a book of essays that goes with it. So this is people's thoughts on John le Carré's writing, as opposed to it's not autobiographical. And this was put together by the same guy, Federico Varese, who helped put the exhibition together. So it's got 9 or 8 essays from various writers who have been influenced by or think his work is important. So hardly science fiction. I'm going to go downstairs with my other John le Carré books, but he's an author that I've really enjoyed over the decades. And that's everything for this haul. Thank you as always for watching. Thank you once again to the folks that sent me books off my wish list. Once again, I do really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for watching, and until next time, goodbye for now.